Yo, how's it going? It's been like 2 weeks. I had some midterms come up and they were kind of crazy, so I didn't really have time to record or edit videos. So yeah, but I'm back. I'm recording. I'm dropping, still dropping videos. Just a little break, but I'm back, so no issues. So just the other day, we got reports from Production Weekly that Shang-Chi was slated to start production in 2025, and Destin Daniel Craig would be coming back and writing and directing the movie. Now, hearing this kind of got me thinking about the MCU as a whole and how they're utilizing the characters that they have and the characters that fans like more than others. If this news is reported to be true, then the release date probably won't be like, it won't release until like 2026, maybe early 2027, which will mean there'll be about a 5 or 6 year gap in between the first Shang-Chi and its sequel, which would just be crazy for a character that people liked so much. It really makes you think about the whole MCU and how they're operating right now, and it makes you kind of understand why people are gravitating away from it. So I wanted to take this video to talk about the state of the MCU, think about the things that may have went wrong for it, to put it in this position that it's in right now, and think about how they can actually fix this going forward. Because the MCU is not a lost cause by any means. I know there's a bunch of people out there saying that it's not a lost cause. They still have characters that bring in like tons of money, right? And this is coming from someone who was an MCU fan growing up. I grew up with the MCU. I didn't know much about any of the other Marvel films. Like, I had seen them, but they weren't like burned into my mind as much as the MCU. So I'm a big sympathizer for the MCU, and it's like my ride or die. So I'm not gonna come in here being super negative or hating towards them. I'm gonna be a little bit more constructive towards how they're operating right now. So for starters, I wanted to talk about how it really does seem like, since Avengers Endgame, really, that they didn't really have a vision for the future going forward. Obviously, they had that big reveal at I believe it was a Comic-Con, maybe like the year after in 2021, showing that there was going to be Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. But besides that, it didn't seem like they really had a vision. Those two movies were coming through so soon, and we weren't getting an Avengers movie before then. So it kind of felt a little bit cluttered. I didn't really think that at the time, but as the movie started coming out, as the TV shows were being produced, I realized it was going to be really weird for all these characters to just show up in this Kang Dynasty movie without any prior experience together. And that's just what it is. I think they created this slate for the multiverse saga a little bit too fast compared to what they did for the Infinity Saga. The Infinity Saga was crafted over time as movies were being, put out. I'm pretty sure they didn't have any huge plans for Thanos besides him being a villain for the Avengers in the future when they dropped the first Avengers movie. But as things got more and more popular, and things like these long shots like the Guardians of the Galaxy movie became really popular, they started crafting together that Infinity War story that we ended up getting. I think where they went wrong for the multiverse saga is that they assumed what we would like and then made a story around it instead of testing the waters with us, which is what they should have done, because they've got a lot more characters now. They're throwing new faces at us. Just test out like what we like and then run with that. They're too stuck to the plan that they originally came up with that they don't want to change it now. Like, we get really popular and successful characters like Shang-Chi, like Moon Knight, and like Loki, which, granted, they did continue that and they gave us a season 2, but they get successful characters like this and then they sideline them to show us more characters instead of maybe putting them at the front of the line and giving us more of them. Why not keep giving us more of the characters that the fans are actually liking, instead of sticking to this predetermined timeline of movies and shows that you had already written out, right? Because I want some more Shang-Chi. I like the other characters that they're coming up with, but I like Shang-Chi a lot more, and I like Moon Knight a lot more. And it just feels like they're not listening to the fans at all on what they like, or they're listening to them too late, or they're like, all right, let me get this part of the timeline out and then I'll listen to the fans. And that kind of sucks. Building up the popularity and the likability of characters that fans have shown interest in would help the MCU still feel like it's that top of the line superhero media. Now I'm gonna name 3 film slash TV shows that had little events, or not little events, they had events in their movies that could have been formed into either huge events across at least the world, or nice little mini events that could have spanned across a few movies or shows. We've got No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and Secret Invasion. These 3 things dropped during Phase 4 and Phase 5, and all 3 of them took inspiration from a comic book event that was super big, like really huge in the universe. No Way Home took inspiration from the Spider-Verse. Multiverse of Madness took inspiration from House of M, and Secret Invasion took inspiration from Secret Invasion. All of these things were situations in which large groups of characters would have to get together to solve them, with No Way Home being like the one that probably was the least affecting of anyone outside of Spider-Man. And the one thing that I do have an issue with, and a lot of people have pointed out, is that the reason that other universe villains show up is pretty dumb. I mean, Doctor Strange just being thrown off a little bit by Peter, that's kind of dumb, and it was kind of like a lazy write-in for why they showed up. And everything else besides that movie is amazing. Like, I think that movie is great, honestly. But if that premise was coupled into Secret Wars, we could have a more cohesive reason for why they're there. And it could still be a Spider-Man movie. We just use the events of Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty as the reason as to why Spider-Man is dealing with this now. Now, Multiverse of Madness looked at House of M and was like, that's cool, let's do it for a Doctor Strange movie. And at first, it was cool, but by the end you realize that we were never going to get another House of M story because it would feel too repetitive to what happened in this movie. And that's annoying considering the X-Men weren't even in the universe yet. So we're never going to get House of M with the X-Men, and that sucks. And I recall seeing some behind the scenes video, and one of the writers was talking about how they had Wanda, like villain Wanda, in their hands, and they decided, why would we let someone else write her as a villain when we can do it? Something like that. I don't want to like improperly quote them. I'll see if I can find the video, but if I remember correctly, they said something along those lines, and that really struck me the wrong way. She can never be evil Wanda again, and under better circumstances, she would be a much better villain as well. Not to say that she was a bad villain or anything. Obviously, Elizabeth Olsen was a great actor in that movie, but it's just the context around it and the fact that we'll only get villain Wanda for one small little appearance that didn't even have much of an effect on the world. It kind of sucks. Do I even need to have an explanation for Secret Invasion? I mean, it was an Avengers level event in the comics, and they basically boiled it down to Nick Fury in the Skrulls, which, on the surface, I thought, I was like, oh, that's cool, whatever. But that needed to be an Avengers level threat. Like, even if they do have it as an Avengers movie before Kang Dynasty, that's fine. I mean, or have it as its own little mini like saga, within either this saga or a future saga. It doesn't matter. We didn't need just a small, like a little TV show about it that wastes all the potential of the Skrulls. These 3 big events that could have had huge popularity and huge hype and lots of tense air in between releases were wasted within one project. I feel like they could have been expanded across multiple projects, just like Infinity War and Endgame were, and they were mishandled. Now, obviously, Marvel has a bunch of other big events from the comic books that they can pull from, but these 3 were decently popular, and I'm pretty sure people would have liked to see them extended out across many projects, but it is what it is. They're in a learning stage right now, creating new events, and hopefully they can figure out how to take these comic book events and actually extend them to multiple projects instead of shoving them into one movie or one TV show and then forgetting about them. I also wanted to talk about the issue with the next Avengers movie already being a big multiversal threat. kind of like on the to the extent of Infinity War and Endgame, that's not a good idea. And I mean, a lot of people have said this, so this is nothing new, but we have to see these new superheroes together in their own team. And without us seeing that first, this big event isn't going to click well with most people. I mean, the chemistry may be perfect, but it'll just feel a little weird for this to be their first time teaming up, especially for such a big threat. With that being said, there's also so many characters that are in the universe right now, so not all of them can be a part of some big Avengers group, right? Or else it would just feel like there's too many characters on the screen. Like, we were already looking at Infinity War and Endgame and saying, how are we going to combine all these Avengers characters and all these Guardians of the Galaxy's characters onto one screen, right? And they did it perfectly, but I almost think that if you add more characters to that story, it'll just feel cluttered. And right now in the MCU, we have so many characters that it would feel cluttered if they were all to just be in this one big team-up movie and nothing else together. I think especially for characters like Moon Knight, they wouldn't really fit well within an Avengers type of atmosphere, right? So the big thing that I thought they should have done, and maybe they still can do, because let's be honest, everything for their future is still up in the air, they can still change things around, is make a bunch of smaller teams within the universe. For example, characters like Werewolf by Night and Moon Knight, of course, and Blade, who's been teased and they're working on that script, they could all be a part of like the Midnight Suns. I know that video game that dropped maybe like a few years ago, it was decently popular, so some people know who the Midnight Suns are, and I mean, I don't think a team up would be terribly received, honestly, especially since the supernatural element of the MCU hasn't really been explored like that. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be interested in checking it out. They could also do the Young Avengers, which it seems like they are doing. I'm pretty sure there was like a rumor that the Young Avengers was going to start production pretty soon, either this year or next year. So I mean, that's another mini team that you can make. And then just make some obscure Avengers teams that maybe only operate in one region of the country or something like that. Just anything to cut down on the size of this big Avengers team. There's just so many characters in this universe that they've all got their own motivations and their own powers that some of them won't mesh well together, whether it be that their goals would not be the same or that their powers just wouldn't work well on screen together. Some of these characters just wouldn't work well on the same Avengers team. Like, I would not want to see someone like Thor fighting on the same team as like She-Hulk, because they just don't seem like they'd go well together. I don't see any situation in which they'd be fighting side by side. And that's not to say that they wouldn't have, like, you know, the same mission in mind, like they wouldn't both be good or anything, but they have different goals, they're on different power levels. It just wouldn't make sense for them to ever be in the same situation. Also, to take it away from like TV show characters, I guess, seeing Shang-Chi or Thor interact with like Shuri, who doesn't even seem like she's really the Black Panther anymore, it wouldn't make sense. And I heard rumors that Shuri was being written into the script of Kang Dynasty, which doesn't make much sense at all. So they've really got to figure out a way to split up these characters. And I'm going to give some examples besides the Midnight Suns, besides the Young Avengers, of teams that can be formed. So we already mentioned the Young Avengers and the Midnight Suns, but those teams are a little bit more higher on the power level. If we want some street level type stuff, we can go for either the Defenders, or they could call it something else. But since we have those Netflix heroes in the MCU now, we can take those, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and Daredevil, and then maybe even add in a few more like She-Hulk or Hawkeye, and make another street level, I guess, Avengers type team, but more of a street level team. The characters lower on the power level have more of a chance of having similar goals than for them to have similar goals to someone like Thor or Shang-Chi. So them showing up in like Avengers movies would not make sense. Give them their own little mini team up in their own movies. I also forgot to mention the Punisher, who could be a part of that Defenders team as well. I mean, and the Punisher is a really popular character, so with them already having Daredevil, the Punisher, not She-Hulk, I mean, she's popular in different ways, but Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, I mean, this could be a relatively popular team as well. Oh yeah, and also Echo, who I enjoyed her show. She could be a part of this team as well. There's no reason not to. I don't see how else they could bring her into any story besides some street level type hero team. We should also get some type of government level Avengers team that's either doing missions for the government or for Nick Fury or whoever, or they're just doing like political type of missions on their own for their own goals within the country. And obviously they would be led by Sam Wilson as Captain America. You could put characters like Hulk, Ant-Man, Joaquin Torres as Falcon, maybe even Hawkeye as well, and some other characters that are probably slipping my mind right now. But you could put these guys together and make a government level Avengers team that, you know, takes on political level threats, like the Thunderbolts, who are kind of like the antithesis to this government level type of team. I'd also suggest taking Bucky off the Thunderbolts and putting him on this team, because I don't even know why he's on the Thunderbolts. I think that's a situation in which they didn't know what to do with him, so they were looking at their slate that they predetermined, and they were like, all right, let's throw him in there for some reason. It doesn't really make sense. And then they should have their own world/cosmic level Avengers team. And obviously, not all these teams need to be called some variant of the Avengers, right? They could have a name completely different from the Avengers, and that'd be fine. But not all these characters need to be on the same one Avengers team, all right? And this team would be like more of a team that would take on someone like Kang or Galactus or anyone like that. I mean, we've got a bunch of cosmic level threats, and I don't really want to see Sam Wilson as Captain America flying up and trying to take them on, because it does not make sense that he'd be doing that. It was already a little bit of a stretch when the original Avengers were taking on Thanos, but now that we've got such a big gap in between some heroes, we need to split up their enemies, right? We need to give them different enemies to fight. This team would probably have Thor, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Shang-Chi, probably the Eternals if they ever show up again. Who knows if that's going to happen at all. Maybe even the Hulk as well. I mean, he could flip-flop between the teams, and I don't think that would be an issue with anyone. And I know that some of the teams that I've mentioned are actually in the works of being created, so I think they're moving in the right direction. I mean, we've got the Young Avengers and we've got the Thunderbolts, and I mean, the Defenders is probably going to come. There's rumors that in Daredevil Born Again, not only is Punisher going to show up, but Luke Cage and Jessica Jones are supposed to show up, which that's already 4 characters right there. That could be its own Defenders thing right there. So I mean, in that sense, I hope that they are moving in the right direction with this team thing, because this next Avengers movie cannot have characters like Sam Wilson and Captain Marvel fighting on the same battlefield, because it just doesn't make sense. They don't have the same enemies. They don't have the same power level. I mean, even in Infinity War and Endgame, they scaled up power levels for those fights to be believable. Like Captain America, I mean, he already had the super soldier serum, so all they had to do was show that he was even stronger now. And they had Ant-Man become Giant Man for the whole movie. They gave War Machine a new like thing of armor with like crazy machine guns. They scaled up these guys' power levels to make it believable, but it was in an understandable way. You can't scale up Sam Wilson as Captain America to fight someone that Captain Marvel is also fighting, because he's not a super soldier. So they need different enemies. They can't be fighting the same enemies. I think another issue that's really that's really hurt the MCU, not plagued it, and this has hurt like the whole movie industry, but there's a bunch of external events that happened that basically sidelined these industries and kind of stunted the MCU. I mean, for starters, COVID happened and they went a whole year without releasing anything. That's a whole year of things they could have released to see what characters are popular, and they had to push that back. They also had the writer's strike where they couldn't write any scripts for anything. I mean, they've been going through this Blade script for like years, right? And they had to halt that because of this strike. They also had to halt Deadpool 3 and probably a bunch of other stuff that they would have wanted to write. So not everything can be blamed on the MCU. they're just still making content at a really bad time. With all that being said, it's understandable that they are kind of hitting a few bumps post the Infinity Saga. I mean, they're entering new territory. They got more characters than they can think of having right now, and they're adding the X-Men and the Fantastic Four soon. So it's understandable that there are a bit of bumps, and they don't know how to use, or they don't know how to showcase all their characters in a proper and cohesive manner. So they're just throwing stuff out there to show them, and that's fine. I'm sure they'll pick it up soon. You know, I have all the faith in Kevin Feige that he'll be able to bring the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in, while making sure that the other characters also get their shine in a proper manner soon enough. I expect it actually to change very soon. I mean, I'm pretty sure Deadpool 3 is going to be good, so there should be no issue with the vision going forward. But yeah, that's what I've got for you today. Let me know what you thought of my idea for changing the structure of the MCU. I feel like not every character can participate in these world-ending threats. It just doesn't fit them. It's not how things roll anymore. I mean, with all the characters. So yeah, let me know what you think the MCU can do to keep moving forward, because I believe they will keep moving forward. They're just at some bump. What do you think they should do to keep the popularity and interest high as well? And what do you think would be better for the universe as a whole? In the comments below. But yeah, thanks for watching.